made videos about this, wrote about this, had special hearings on it, requested special hearings after the fact, who has been talking about our energy situation, and in particular the CEJA Act, is State Representative Dan Caulkins. And Dan joins me now on The Real Story. Dan, thanks so much for taking a little bit of time on this Sunday night to really talk about this more, because this can't be the end of the discussion with the likes of the Chicago Tribune. This has to be the start of the discussion about them reporting honestly and fully on policy issues going down in Springfield.
We would hope so. They certainly, the tone and the headline of that editorial, which is the Chicago Tribune, let's face it, it's kind of the paper of record for Illinois. They're the last and the biggest voice in the print media. And they also have an internet presence. But the headline should have been, "Boy, were we wrong." I mean, that's what the headline should have been. And obviously none of that. They're now trying to place blame on the General Assembly, which is ludicrous. They had a voice. They used their voice to promote this cockamamie idea that we can survive on wind and solar and support our industry and to support our population. And it's irritating to you. It's just absolutely infuriating to me. We spent the last 6 years on the Energy Environment Committee and also the Public Utilities Committee. I specifically asked to be on those committees when I got elected because I have the Clinton power plant in our House district down here, plus a major Ameren presence. And I've spent 6 years trying to push an all of the above policy, but we need to have the major news outlets and an influential newspaper in the city of Chicago, where the majority of the Democrats come from, the Cook County and the Collier Counties area, on their side, and then they turn around and go, "Gosh, is anybody paying attention to this?" I about bit my tongue off when I read it.
Well, I mean, here's the deal. They also, further on in the editorial, this was also just an irritant to me. They literally wrote this. Quote, "Just 3 years later, it appears the alarmists were right, and Pritzker and the Green Lobby were wrong," end quote. Well, here's a couple things. They're trying to say that they had no input in this discussion. It was none of their fault. It was Pritzker and the Green Lobby that were wrong. No, Michael Hawthorne, your frickin' lead writer on these issues was wrong. And then you call these people alarmists after you say that they were right. They weren't alarmists. They were right.
Yes, we were the voice of reason.
Yes.
And we weren't, and there's no way that we could, in a super minority, that we could change the direction of solar and wind coming through Illinois. But our arguments, Jeannie, were very simple. Let's not cut off our nose to spite our face. Let's not pull the plug on the energy generators that we have in place that have made, Southern Illinois, now Northern Illinois is being affected, at least energy independent. We were, in fact, net exporters of electricity before all of this happened. And that's all we asked. We said, look, we're not going to stop you from building windmills and putting up solar panels, but let's at least not take out the other electric generators, our capacity, until you can bring up the other forms of generation. And we hadn't got nowhere. And in fact, that movement, as you correctly said, was aided and abetted by the Tribune. They pushed that agenda.
Yeah, well, okay, just to put a double exclamation point on that, just a few months after the bill passed, actually, before the bill passed, the Illinois Commerce Commission, whose members are appointed by the governor, issued a warning in front of a legislative committee on April 8th, 2021. The bill passed in September of 2021. The chief of the Public Utilities Bureau, in remarks about the legislation that was under consideration, noted, the elimination of fossil fuel plants in Illinois that is currently the source of such a significant share of Illinois' power generation will substantially impact energy and capacity market prices and reliability in Illinois. The Ameren service territory is likely to be disproportionately impacted. It's not clear how Illinois' electricity needs will be fully met in the event fossil fuel plants are eliminated. The impacts on electrical power reliability are likely to be significant. Those are your own experts.
Correct.
Appointed by Pritzker himself, saying, you know what are you doing? Saying that you're going to eliminate fossil fuels. These guys they don't care. They all just have their green eye shades on. And the only people that are seeing green are these farmers who are selling out to the solar farms, making, $1,000 to $3,000 an acre, and then going off to Florida while their neighbors have to look at that disgusting field. And by the way, it doesn't produce near the energy that it's supposed to, and it ruins the ground, underneath it for years after it's even taken out. So this is all a joke. It's all a joke.
Yeah, well, it's a hoax and a scam. As you rightly pointed out in your newsletter this week, the cost of just to build one windmill, how much steel, how much concrete, and what's the energy? How much energy does it take to produce that steel to deliver that concrete? It's unbelievable that we're being forced down this road. There's another part of this that people aren't talking about, and that is that Ameren is now forced to build out a new grid. Before we were generating enough electricity in down here that it was distributed around on the grid that we have, and yes, we needed to upgrade it, but now because we're importing so much electricity that was never was never before envisioned, that Ameren now is multi-billion-dollar projects on the board over the next 5-7 years in order to connect Illinois to the rest of in a substantial way, so that we can import the electricity that we need to run the state. Yeah. And guess who has to pay for that? The ratepayers.
Yep. For sure.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan, we're going to take a quick break. I want to be right back with you, and we're going to talk about the other problem with this, and that is the massive increase in demand that is being fueled by Governor Pritzker's special deals to corporations. Okay, we'll be right back with more from Dan Caulkins.
The Real Story with Jeanne Ives continues on AM 560. The Answer.
All right, we are back, and Dan Caulkins, state representative in the 88th State Legislative District, is still on the line with me. And we've been talking about this shameful Tribune editorial. Basically, is anybody paying attention in Springfield? Talking about, of course, our electricity needs, and Dan and only a handful of his colleagues were actually paying attention, and they spoke up. But other people spoke up too. And then, the other part of this Tribune editorial, Dan, quite frankly, they then discuss this, which just kills me. He says this is what they wrote. But the crisis could be upon Northern Illinois even faster than that, meaning a lack of power. Because future demand is projected to soar even as supply falls. Power-hungry data centers, the development of which a number of Chicago aldermen are encouraging within city limits as a way to generate more property tax revenue, are on the drawing boards. ComEd projects that new data centers throughout its territory easily could require 4 gigawatts of electricity. To put that in context, such an enormous amount alone would consume nearly the entire output of 2 of the 5 nuclear stations serving the region. And Dan, what is the governor doing when it comes to data centers and the quantum computing campus? What's the governor's big deal? What's he doing?
Well, he's using our tax dollars to bribe people to come to Illinois and open businesses is what he's doing. And I don't know, like $500 million for this quantum research center. I will have a bill out next week. I've
good.
Asked our staff to draft a bill that said that any new business in Illinois or expanding business that is going to use more than 2 megawatts of electricity or a substantial amount of water must go through some review process. And we're working to try to figure out who will do that review. I don't know if it's the ICC. I don't know if it's CUB. I don't know if it's the House or the Energy Committee. I don't know, but there needs to be, people need to wake up and understand what the real cost is for these data centers, and they're great, and I think that they're good. But you saw what happened in New York with Microsoft, right?
What was that?
They essentially guaranteed the owners of 3 Mile Island.
Yeah, that's right.
That was closed down, that they guaranteed the utility company that owns 3 Mile Island nuclear generator that they would buy all of the electricity it produces. Microsoft will buy that electricity for their data centers. So how do you well, that's fine. I'm all for it. I think that's great. But we don't have an idled nuclear power plant that we can fire up to support these data centers that we're supposed to be bringing to Illinois.
Well, and also, I mean, they can't just decide that, we're going to put up a massive solar field next to this quantum computing center, and that's going to supply the energy, because guess what? I mean, first of all, whatever the rating is, they only get 20% of the output on a solar field. And number 2, I mean, what are you going to do at night? There's no solar power there. I mean, this is a joke.
Yep, nope.
Your equipment's just going to burn up, because they need to be some of that stuff for the quantum computing. I was reading about it because I wanted to know a little bit more. I mean, they have to go below zero. They have to basically freeze everything out.
Right.
So,
and it requires a huge amount of electricity and I believe water, but it's not just that. I mean, we're looking at what's going to happen in Manteno if this Goshen thing goes through. How much water are they going to use? How much electricity is it going to take for that battery plant?
Well, you're right. I mean, I was just reading the Cranes article from August 20th about this, and it said that, talked about them refurbishing the 1.5 million square foot facility, and the company doubled its overall real estate footprint. So it bought another 200 acres for a right-of-way needed. Here's the deal. They bought 200 acres for a right-of-way needed for nearby electricity transmission lines and a ComEd substation to deliver the large amount of power the plant will require. Well, it's supply and demand, folks. These guys are sucking in lots of demand for your electricity, and the supply isn't there. Guess what happens to the price? Your electrical bills are going through the roof because, and by the way, and guess what, Dan? Correct me if I'm wrong, but the Pritzker did not promise me $500 million to compensate for my higher electrical bills.
No. And that's you're. I guess I should say that you're seldom wrong, but that's not the point. We have. But
I mean, that's what's happening. We're paying these companies to come, and then they're hiking up all the costs everywhere else, and then this quantum center's getting a special property tax break as well too. Well, all that then goes to the residential property owners to pick up the cost. I mean,
well, that's exactly it. Just like property taxes, when they give all these tax breaks to a company to come in and locate in Illinois when they give them, property tax breaks. Well, the cost of doing, running government doesn't go down. It's just that they shift the burden to the homeowners or to the other businesses. And this is what's happening down here in southern Illinois in the Ameren district. Because we don't make electricity anymore at the levels that we need, we have to go out and buy it at auction. And anybody that's been to an auction, if there's more than one buyer, the bidding process goes up and up and up until, somebody cries uncle. But the problem is that Ameren can't cry uncle. They have to supply the electricity in their district down here in MISO. And so it doesn't matter to the Ameren how much they pay, because that goes right to the ratepayer.
That's right.
I mean, Ameren doesn't make any money on the electricity.
Right.
They buy it and they resell it. They make money on the transmission of that electricity into our homes and businesses. So if they have to pay $1 or $10, they don't. It doesn't matter to them. They have to provide 100% of the needs in their territory.
Well, and it's also really false advertising to say, oh, this solar field next to, in Champaign County, it's going to provide power for like 200 homes. Well, first of all, that's not very many homes, but whatever it is, right? No, that power, anything that's generated from any power source goes to the grid. And once those electrons are up there, the grid doesn't care where they came from at all. Correct. It's not like they're dedicating, unless there's only a direct line from a particular energy source to a particular user. That's the only time that you're going to get specific use. Otherwise, any time that they're talking about, oh, we've got all this power supply, well, you know what? You can look at MISO all the time. You can look at that app. I look at the app a lot, and you can find out, like, usually it's coal and in the MISO region, coal and natural gas are supplying usually 65% of the power at all times. Nuclear's coming in the MISO region, maybe with another 18%. And the rest is renewables, but that could be hydro that you don't have much of, if hardly negligible amount in Illinois. So, I mean, there has to be a lot more truth telling about this. Anyway. Right. Hey, Dan, I kind of got to go. I went on a rant there at the end, and I'm sorry I talked over you. But, hey, I hope you file that bill, and I can't wait to see that, and then you can force it on them in veto session.
You bet.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Thanks a lot. State Representative Dan Caulkins, and we'll be right back with